You're listening to the Breezy Moms podcast on Digital Stream Radio.
Sometimes we forget that kids are little people. Tonight we learn about the importance of focusing on their mental health so that they have the best chance of being all that they can be. So stick around. Hey everyone, you're listening to the Breezy Moms podcast, a weekly show that chronicles the adventures of motherhood. I'm Candace. Now let's start the show. Hey.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm wonderful, Miss Candace. How are you?
I am so good. I got a 3-hour nap today in the middle of the day.
That's
My
impressive.
whole life has changed.
That's impressive. You know, because mothers typically don't have that amount of time if you have your kids running around.
No,
and
we don't.
if you're a child care provider and taking care of somebody else's kids.
I know.
So how on God's green earth did you manage that?
Thank you to the man for calling me in for jury duty and then not calling me up for jury duty. So I had to go downtown to New Haven Superior Court and report for my civic duty, which meant that I closed daycare for the day. And that's a whole story. Like, I was not prepared. Anyway, let's start with, I went to jury duty and I didn't get called. So I got out at noontime and I went home and had lunch with not with James. I had lunch and then James got home because he had taken the day off because we weren't sure if I would get chosen. And we would need a way to pick up the kids from school, which shout out to James because I didn't think through all of that at all. I was like, of course I won't get picked. It didn't even occur to me that I might get picked and then not be able to leave the court. Like I wasn't thinking through any of that. So shout out to James because he really can see he's like Neo.
He's your partner.
He can see all the different avenues. I'm like, oh, I guess somebody will have to come and pick up the kids. So anyway, I got out early and he kept asking me what I wanted to do, but I was kind of falling asleep at the table while he was asking that. So he said, well, do you want to take a nap? And I go, yes.
Oh my God, that's like a God-given, like,
and
God
I just
sent.
went to sleep. I put on an eye mask. I put on some ocean waves on Alexa and I just passed out. And he came, I was only supposed to sleep for an hour and he came at an hour and I was just like, no, we can't, I'm not ready. And then
I wasn't ready.
No.
She texted me at 6:30. Normally she's texting me at 7 o'clock. I'm on my way. 6:30. I'm on my way. I was like, wait, I'm not ready.
I know. Well, I'm in a whole different space right now because I got some sleep.
I was like, who are you? What have you done with Candace?
I know.
And no, but that's amazing. So not only that, you got a nap. She was Superwoman today. She got a nap and she went hiking.
We went for a hike. We went for a short family hike because one, I was feeling nice and rested. Two, everybody was home early and I didn't have to work till 5:30. So at 4 o'clock, I was still sleeping. James had the kids outside in the yard. And then at 4 o'clock, I got up. He had already fed them because he made dinner in the afternoon. And so I was like, we should just go out for a hike.
She literally walked into the studio like James Brown, feeling good.
Feeling good.
She was like, I was like, yo, there's a pep in her step. I do not recognize this woman. I don't know who you are, but I like it.
It's amazing what a few hours of actual sleep will do for you. I mean, I don't think that people really understand how important sleep is and how little sleep parents get. And I know dads don't get a ton of sleep, but moms get even less. So
and when you get it, you have to appreciate it.
You really do.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And as good as that felt, and I'm like running on the high of it, it doesn't make up for deep, restful sleep at night, but you take it where you can get it. So.
And that's going to probably be hard for you tonight because you've already had maybe an hour or two of...
It was 3 hours.
3 hours of sleep, yeah. That wasn't a nap. It was
sleep.
That was half of your
It was
your
deep restorative. It was deep restorative sleep that I needed. I absolutely needed it.
Anyway, welcome everyone. It's Thursday. This is the Breezy Moms podcast, of course, hosted by yours truly, Candace. Mm-hmm. We are live on Facebook Live every Thursday. And of course on Digital Stream Radio, where you can access that live stream and listen to the show in audio version if you'd like. And of course, this podcast is available on Apple Podcast, Google Play Music, Spotify, because I always forget that one, and all the good places where you can listen to your podcast and you can listen to Candace do her thing. And we're super excited because you have a guest today.
I do. So I have a friend, like a new friend, but I love her. So I have a friend who is joining us from DC, and she is a school-based mental health therapist. And we connected a couple months ago at a friend's wedding, and she started talking about this topic, and I was like, oh, snap. Sometimes I forget that little, like, kids are actually little people. So I thought immediately that I needed to have her come on the show. And so she's finally here. So I'm super excited for that conversation
That's
later.
amazing. And speaking of little people, I have a question for you.
I'm listening.
How are your amazing boys?
The boys are good. The boys are really good. So tonight we got out, and it was nighttime. It was probably about 4:30 by the time we got to the trail that we were going on. And I think we just all needed some time out. And I was super excited to take James. I didn't realize that we've been going to this place for easily at least a year. And I always take the boys when he's at the gym or when he's somewhere else. And this is actually the first time that all of us got to go. So it was kind of cool for me. I mean, I felt pretty excited about it, to show him where we've been going when we're talking about going on these hikes and going in the woods and common ground, and how, like, we really love this space. And so it was really cool to be in there. And we went on we did a little tour and showed him all the things. And then we went on a hike, and there are a couple trails that, they have colored, the blue trail or the red trail. And what always ends up happening is we start off on one trail, and then the boys see some like hill they want to climb or some like ravine they want to cross, and we end up on a different trail. And so we basically did a little bit of a loop and sort of went right back to where we started, but it was about 45 minutes. And then they got about 20 minutes to play in Brick City, which is, this cool place that they like to play in. So we were out there for a little over an hour, and it was just really, it felt restorative. Just like the sleep was really good. I was having a super headache this morning because of like confusion around jury duty, and I just felt like I needed some endorphins, some fresh air, some, just something to take my mind. And it works every time.
And the day was absolutely gorgeous. It was
really
a perfect day for it.
Except it's the end of October, and I got a mosquito bite. Like, there's still mosquitoes out.
Like, you're not going to get Zika. You're not going to get, what's the other one? The triple E.
Triple E.
You'll be fine.
Encephalitis or whatever it is. I know, but it's annoying.
Are you kidding me? Mothers, like, mutate. They're like super women. It's like incredible. You'll be fine.
It's already gone. No, but it's just annoying because you think, and I did bring bug spray, but I was like, it's almost winter. We should be fine.
Well, we haven't had our first freeze.
I thought we did. My house has been freezing cold.
The northern part of the state did. We have not at the shoreline. So there's still some residual.
Oh, so they're not dead yet.
Correct.
Oh, gosh.
So, I mean, you can walk around with liquid nitrogen and like freeze the living daylights out of your surroundings, but who wants to do that?
I mean, someone might. So anyway, the boys are really good. I can't remember when. I think Picture Week was this week, and so they got some really cute, really fly haircuts. And I asked Lincoln, he picked out. I let them pick out, on the wall of all the different choices that they could do, and he picked out something that was intense. And it was already the end of. The shop was supposed to be closing, so I was like, why don't you pick out something a little less intricate? But he picked out this cool, like, lightning bolt kind of thing. So he's had this really fancy haircut, and Emery also was kind of excited to sit through the haircut and made it through, but is still a little antsy.
I think it's the hair, right? Once the hair starts landing on you and it starts like stinging you in the skin.
For Emery, it's the sound of the buzzer. It's the noise. So, and that the like spiky hairs on your neck stuff is not great, but for him, it's really the sound of the buzzer that sort of like confuses him. So we really just need to keep going. We don't go as often as we should. I only go for haircuts when something's going on. You see, I don't care about my hair. Like, I don't make a big deal about hair.
So in other words, Candace got her babies looking fly this week.
For Picture Week.
That's awesome.
Yes. And
no matter how fly they get, though, they still take those awkward pictures, especially from like kindergarten all the way through like at least 7th or 8th grade. They always have those awkward like looks, and you're like, why?
Is this what I'm paying for?
Why couldn't you smile?
Just one smile. I just need one smile. It's always like, but thankfully, the teachers, we try really hard to like shine them up. We do coconut oil, all kinds of stuff to give them the best chance of making it to 10 or 11 o'clock when it's time for the pictures.
But for pictures though, matte is better, right? Like you can probably make sure their skin, like their arms and legs, if they have shorts on, looks nice and moisturized.
For kids, you have to start heavy in the morning because by 11 a.m., all of that is gone, right? So if you go light at 7 o'clock in the morning, by the time 11 comes, they're going to be ashy and crazy looking.
See, I was the kind of kid that would like walk into school with like theater makeup and be like, no, I'm not ready yet, as I'm like powdering my face. I remember I used to go to Enrico Fermi School for the Performing Arts in New York. And so we were being taught about stage and stage makeup and all that stuff, even in second grade.
Wow, that's cool.
And so, I was like, do you have that compact? 'Cause I'm a little shiny over here. I'm not ready for the camera. Yeah, I was such a little diva when I was little.
Oh my gosh.
It was horrible.
No, the shininess is what it's like. I was actually talking to one of my clients because his son came in with his face glistening, and I was like, that's that shiny brown boy, like that's Vaseline. Like, Black parents live and die by Vaseline. Okay.
Absolutely.
Maybe you get upgraded to some Aquaphor, and now it's all about the coconut oil or shea butter. But a shiny kid is at least that they will not be ashy, crazy looking by the end of the day. Like, you're just trying to put a good foot forward, represent the family, like people at home love you. I'm always saying to my kids, like, you look like nobody loves you. And I work so hard. I work so hard for you. You can't be out here in the street looking like nobody cares about you, because I do. So.
But no matter how you try, they still find a way.
I know.
Find a way.
So that's why you go heavy in the morning. James is really good. He's like, where's the coconut oil? Really good at the coconut oil. And this week, this will be the last thing I say about this. The coconut oil, we were using this jar of oil, and it was down to like the bottom. So I noticed that James was using a spoon to get it out, because you can't get your hand all the way in.
Whatever it takes.
So, mom hack, I put that shit in the microwave so that, because it's winter now, it's all solid. Put it in the microwave and got it melty. And then I closed the container and put it on its side and put it in the refrigerator. I almost said refrigerator. In the refrigerator. And so now it's solid, but it's solid all along the side. So you can just stick your fingers in and pull it out of the side.
Who's better than you?
Nobody, really.
I'm telling you, these hashtag Mom So Hard tips are incredible. This woman she's a genius.
I know. So I was just putting that out there because we're gonna get a tip from Francis later, but I wanted
awesome.
to make sure I didn't forget about this one. And then the last thing that I wanted to say, which isn't about the boys, but is about me and is connected to jury duty, is that I realized this morning was the first time that I have had to get up and get out of the house on a work day like a regular working person. And I realized that I have forgotten how to do that because my commute is from upstairs to downstairs. Like, she
goes from the bed to the fridge.
I just don't have to go that far. And anything I might forget, I can just get it because I'm in the house like, it's not a big deal.
I totally envy you, though.
I know, but it has made me so weak in like the muscle of getting ready to leave the house and having all of the things that you need. So this morning I had to be at jury duty at 8 o'clock, and I got there and got into the building and realized that I hadn't read through all of the information about parking and blah, blah, blah.
Nobody ever does. You figure it out once you go to Brugger's Bagels and get your bagel and coffee.
That's literally what I was trying to do, right? So I get inside and realize that I've parked in a garage that's really convenient, but is expensive, and they had a free option. So I was like, bet, I will go. There's enough time. I can go and move my car to the free lot. Turns out I left my wallet at home.
Ouch.
And so I was like, okay. And then I was afraid that I was like, I wonder if they're going to even let me into jury duty without proof of who I am. Like, maybe I sent somebody.
Well, they let you in before.
I didn't know.
Oh, you weren't in there yet.
I wasn't in there yet. So I got in there I was ready with a whole story. Like, I don't have my license. My husband is going to bring it to me. Like, blah, blah, blah. But they let me in and they didn't check my license. But then when I found out about parking, I was like, I can't even move the car because I don't have my license. I don't have my money to pay to get the car out of the lot. And so I don't know what to do. So anyway, I called James, and thank God, I told you he took the day off, that he was able to come and bring me he brought me a charger for my phone. He brought me
she would have been
right?
devastated.
Like, my phone was on 30%. And I was just like, I don't even know.
Whose phone is at 30%?
This is
at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I didn't plug it in at night. Listen,
Candace.
I don't leave the house anymore. I don't have to, my phone can be on 0 in the morning. I'm like, oh, I'll just plug it in. Like, I don't have to think through any of those things. And this thing, and like, God save James that he was able, like, he was available and there. He brought me the wallet, and then he went to the parking garage that I was going to, so that then he would bring me back to the place so I wouldn't have to waste time walking back. Like,
I
it
gotta
was
see
just,
this man on Ellen, Man of the Year. Like,
he really
seriously.
is. He really is Man of the Year.
I'm gonna sign him up.
We should. We really should. Ellen, we've got one for you.
He's a good one. He's a keeper.
And so I just realized that there is something to, like, I have a routine for what I'm doing right now, but I'm so deep into that I don't remember how to be one of these other people who leaves the house in the morning. And I was just so flustered that the whole time I was at jury praying that I wouldn't get chosen, I was still, like, something happens and you just feel like fluttery in your belly and you can't. I was trying to take a nap because I had to recover. It was a really stressful morning.
Well, the good thing is, all is well in the land of Oz. You weren't selected.
I wasn't selected.
And that means that you won't be needing to come back for another 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, they said 3 years.
Although, don't sleep on that, because I got called for jury duty within 6 months of each appearance.
Gross.
And it's because I didn't get selected the first time, and neither did I get selected the second time. But nonetheless, they called me twice.
Oh, my gosh.
Bastards.
I know.
So
that just made me think that when you have like a switch like that, I think when it was time to travel, that that's a big deal. And so you put a lot of time and effort into the planning for that. But when it's a smaller change and you're like, oh, I used to leave the house. Like, I can do this. You should probably actually take a few seconds to think through what all that entails, because you might be surprised that you've forgotten how to be that thing or
and
do
bring
that thing.
your charger.
Bring
with
your
you.
charger.
That's important.
And that was the other thing, is that I didn't bring the charger because I have a charger in my car, but at the last minute I decided to take his car and his car didn't have a charger. So it was just like thing after thing after thing, and it always feels like things compile and compound on each other. It's like one thing goes wrong and then another thing and another thing. It was just a thing. It was probably contributed to why I needed that midday nap.
Why you enjoyed it so much.
And why I enjoyed it so much. So, anyway, that was my morning.
Well, that's good.
Okay, I'm ready to bring on Frances.
Are we ready for Frances? All right, ready. So we're going to bring her in.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
And,
okay.
And as you said, she's joining us all the way from DC,
From
right?
DC, yeah.
That's amazing.
I have some notes. I have notes. I always have notes, right?
Go for it.
Okay. So tonight we have Frances joining us from DC. She's a school-based mental health therapist. I met her a couple years ago when her and her husband lived here in Connecticut, and I just saw them recently at a mutual friend's wedding. After hearing about the work that she's doing with children, I just had to have her on the show, and I'm super excited that she's here so that we can learn about children's mental health. Frances, thank you so much for being here.
Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me.
For a second, I thought your sound wasn't working. I was like, oh. But we're good. We're good.
Panic mode.
Panic. Thank you so much for being here. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks.
Good. So let's just jump right in. Tell us a little bit about you. Who, what, where, when, like all of those things.
Yeah. So my name is Frances Ayala. I'm a licensed clinical social worker in Washington, D.C., and I've been in the field for about 10 years.
Wow.
I grew up in Windsor, Connecticut, to a Puerto Rican family, and I started my career in Connecticut as an outpatient clinician, working with children ages 3 to 11. And I also have experience working with children 0 to 6 from an in-home based clinician position. And I've been in DC now for about 2 years, working as a school-based clinician.
It's an expensive city.
How's DC treating you?
Expensive. It's good. I love the idea of how DC feels like a town and a city had a baby.
Yeah.
So it's like, it feels like a city, but you still see trees and you get to see the seasons. So that's nice.
And
That's
plus,
awesome.
it's right there, the nation's capital. You have access to all this amazing history, and the museums are there. They've got a lot of it's a very, very good place to be healthy. There's a lot of paths to walk, a lot of bike riding, a lot of segwaying. There's a lot of stuff that goes up there, but the museums are amazing. Yeah.
That was an adjustment. The bikers.
Yeah.
I have to like look extra hard now when I'm driving to make sure I'm not hurting anybody.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And have you had a chance to visit the Smithsonian's? Like, have you been to, that's the one thing that whenever I go to DC, there's always some like reason that we've gone, and the touring stuff is secondary. And so I haven't actually been to any, if maybe one,
You'll
but
get there.
really haven't been to any of them. And I know that the last couple of years they opened up the African American history Smithsonian. I don't even know what it's called, but
still a waiting
it's still
list to get in there.
Yeah. Have you been to any good ones?
Yeah, I went to the Af Museum, and that's amazing. I've gone like a handful of times, and it still doesn't feel like I've seen the whole thing.
Oh my
So
gosh.
if you go, just like prepare to
Not see
take your
everything.
time
Yeah.
and maybe the whole day. I've also gone to the National Portrait Gallery, where both Obama and Michelle and Barack Obama's portraits are held, as well as other presidents as well.
The other ones don't matter.
It's impressive. Yeah, kind of.
It's the only reason why I would go.
They also have a really good portrait of the justices, the female justices.
Oh, cool.
Sandra Day O'Connor and all of the other justices that have already retired.
Yeah, so cool.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, there's so much to do in DC, and really, like, if you're going to go down, unfortunately, not many of the museums are open on certain weekends. So you have to make sure that if you're going, because they're federal employees, you would have to make it a weekday type of thing. So that's something to keep in mind when you're going, that not all of those museums are open on the weekend because they're federal employees. But the botanical gardens are amazing. And even just walking through the mall, that's 2.5 miles of walk from one end to the other, from the Capitol all the way down to the Lincoln Memorial. But it's a really good walk.
And they also have local bikes that you could just borrow and ride on the mall or around the city. And sometimes that's a cool perspective to see the city in.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is really cool.
So let's go back to your work. You were telling us, you lived here in Connecticut. You're currently doing this and been doing it for the past 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. And did you make a conscious effort or decision to work with kids specifically? Is that something that you wanted to do from the beginning?
I want to say that I've always loved children. I didn't know that I would be working with children, but I felt like I was naturally drawn to them.
Nice. So I will let Candace ask away.
No, it's a good segue. So when we're thinking about a child's mental health, what does that mean, right? What does that mean to you? And what do we, like, are there things that we get wrong about children's mental health? What are the things we get right about it? Can you tell us a little bit about what that means?
Sure. Well, to me, children and their mental health really means that children are impacted by their caretakers and their environments in a very real way. They depend on their caregivers for survival, for emotional connection, security, regulation. And really the absence of those needs can have some real impact in the overall development of a child, both physically and emotionally. Particularly during 0 to 3 years old is where the brain is developing at the fastest rate and making the greatest growth in terms of neurological connections. And so it's really a captive time for caregivers to build connection and security with their children at that time.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. But the good news, aside from the fact that they're really impacted by their surroundings, we're not perfect, is that studies show that our brain is actually pretty elastic and wired for connection. So even if there's been stress or trauma or negative experiences, a loving, nurturing, and safe relationship can actually help to reverse or repair some of those impacts. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, that is amazing.
That is amazing. And, there's correlation between what you've just mentioned and seeing it. And you're right, because you see children that experience trauma, children, for example, that are in the system, that are from foster parent to foster parent. And then they find that one person that they connect with, and they get adopted, and they grow up to be amazing, productive, really well-rounded individuals. And I think that it has to do with the fact that during that age, during that time frame in their lives, they are the most flexible, and they are the most inclined to be able to take the nurturing or the love or information or experiences and really allow themselves to go through that with minimal effort, because they're so, how would I say, flexible.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they're absorbing things, they're seeing everything, and their brain is malleable. Even if we make mistakes, or because raising a child is hard, and you're never going to get it right all the time, and good enough is okay. And so it's really remarkable that our biology is such that we're able to correct even when things aren't ideal.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That one, good enough is okay, and that two, biology supports that, right? Like, if good enough wasn't okay, then that meant that biology would make it so that once you're broken, But
exactly.
But once you're broken, you can heal, in all senses of the word. I often feel like, oh, we didn't do it. It's over. Like, we didn't. We don't read every single day, so we might as well never read again. It feels like you can't fix a thing once you have gone down a path. It's like, oh, he's 5. We're never going to fix him. We broke him. He's never going to get better. What would you say to parents I feel like that's a really, for me at least, it feels like a real struggle, a real thing that I'm always trying to deal with. Oh, I didn't do sign language with the second kid. I only did it with the first kid. He's already 3. I might as well not start. You know what I mean? What would you say to parents who feel like they're in a point where you've had this whatever struggle, background, whatever is happening, and you know that there's a way to be better, but you don't know how or what to do? What would you tell that person?
I would tell them first to just honor their feelings and really hold space for that. Because sometimes we're just so caught up on what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing, and we don't always hold space for those feelings. And the truth is that when parents are happy, when parents are whole, when parents are taken care of, they then have more capacity and space to do so for their children. And so I would say that realistically, you don't have to get it right 100% of the time. Some studies say, and this is a low bar, but most people excel it. But folks say that you only have to get it right about 30% of the time. And I know that so comforting. Really low bar, but most people exceed that. And so I would encourage folks to not be so hard on themselves.
And I've heard this as well. I mean, you're speaking something that we hear all the time, that you can only influence the activities of your child only but so much. Like you said, 30% of the time, 30% is what you're looking for as a bar. May not be as high as we think it should be, but the rest of it, that 70%, is all of the child, the little human that you're raising, because they're developing their sense of being, who they are, what they like, how they do things, their attitudes, their feelings. So they're doing most of that work. You just sort of have to kind of push them in the right direction.
Right. No, I completely agree. Like, I think that when it comes to supporting children's mental health, you cannot put a price on holding space for a child to be seen, to feel safe, and to be inspired to express themselves freely. Because that is when they're then allowed to reach different milestones and learn different social skills and cope with problems. When you're really giving them the opportunity to be themselves.
That's so real. So all of that made me think sort of personally. My kids are getting some support for for speech, right? For speaking at school. And I just heard today that the pre-K teacher is recommending it for my second son, right? So now they'll both be getting some speech therapy support at school. When you just said that about the importance of holding space for kids to be themselves and sort of speak
and be heard,
be heard, right? My immediate thought is sort of culturally, right? I come from a culture of like seen and not heard, or what I said what I said. Why? Because I said so. Like I come from that space, and the idea of like chatty little kids doesn't always, the picture that I see is not always a brown kid, right? Like brown kids are to be seen and not heard. And so I'm struggling. I'm struggling with the importance of allowing them to be heard, with also checking, this thing that I have in me that I'm trying to fight, that instinct to tell them because I said so, but it's really hard. So sort of on a cultural base, right? Like we're from similar backgrounds. What would you say to people who look like us, who have that general instinct to lean towards the seen and not heard, or the because I said so, and how that, like I think sometimes we think, oh, but I'm fine. Like that's how I grew up, but I'm fine. What is it saying now? What are the studies saying now about the importance of, or like how we can course correct for our kids now, specifically for the culture?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think I would say that behavior has meaning. Sometimes we're going our day to day, or we're trying to get through what we're doing, and that behavior that isn't just be seen and not heard is interrupting what we're doing. And so sometimes we really need them, like, can you just stop?
Yes.
And so it's really easy to get frazzled, but I wonder about considering that whatever they're doing, they're trying to communicate with you. Behavior is communication for children, because they don't always have the language or the skill set to communicate it the way that we do as adults. And so when they're behaving in a way that feels unmanageable or challenging, they're looking to meet a need. They're trying to meet a need in the best way that they can. And sometimes the kids that need the most love behave the most difficultly because they're really trying to get that connection. And so my advice would be to pause and honor your feeling in that moment, because you're entitled to it. It's valid and it's okay. And then regulate it, because at that moment, you're also modeling for your child what you are asking of them. And then get curious. Get curious and wonder, like, what are they trying to communicate? Slow down, pay attention, and see what is it that they're trying to get. And then hopefully you'll be able to figure that piece out and say, oh, that's why he's acting up, or that's why he's saying this, because I don't know, he was hungry, or I thought I gave him a snack and it's 2:00 and I totally forgot. And no wonder he's bouncing off the walls, But really being kind to yourself, modeling behavior, and getting curious about what's actually happening for your kid.
That modeling behavior thing is so real.
And it puts it into perspective, right? So I was going through my Facebook feed, and I ran into this one meme, and, because everything is a meme nowadays, but it said something that really struck me and impacted me in a way that, like, made me actually stop and think. And that is, when something gets rough, or things get tough, or things are not working out the way that we planned or the way that we want them to, we immediately go to, why is this happening to me? Right? And so the meme is asking us, instead of asking the question, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, what is this trying to teach me? And it really shifts your perspective in how you're going to approach that problem, that issue. And I think that it may be similar to what I've just heard. So if the child is being rambunctious and they're looking for attention, obviously they want to make a connection.
Mom.
Yeah.
Mom.
So instead
That's not my name.
instead of like turning around and be like, why are you doing this to me? what can I learn from this? What is he trying, or what is she trying, or what are they trying to teach me or to communicate with me? And how am I going to learn from this? And I think that would probably put yourself or set yourself up for a better opportunity to better deal with what's happening in front of you.
Yeah.
Right then and there.
I mean,
That's right.
the thing I'm thinking about with the seen and not heard thing that's like running through my mind is like sometimes I wonder if my kids are having some struggle with speech because I don't speak with them sort of as much as I should, right? I know I talk to them a lot, but with on the lines of seen and not heard, or because I said so, right? If you ask me a question, I give you an answer. It's because I said so, right? We're not going to have a 20-minute discussion about why I said you can't have any more gum. I said there's no more gum. You know what I mean? And so am I, without knowing it, cutting off the conversation, which I try to remind myself that they are trying to master. They're not trying to annoy, right? They're trying to master conversation, master language by asking me all of these questions and saying these things over and over again. But when I respond in a way that sort of curtails or cuts them off right at the source, am I robbing them of that chance to learn additional words, or again, like you said, modeling the response? And it pains me when, like sometimes Lincoln will say to Emery, stop crying. And I'm just like, in the moment I go, well, maybe he's not feeling well. And then I was like, wait, I probably said that to him at some point. You know what I mean? Because I thought that there was no reason for you to be crying because I tried to explain to you what happened. You know what I mean? Like it's just, but it isn't until I see Lincoln do something that I know I have done that I realize that maybe it was a little harsher than I intended it to be.
But they also don't realize that they're doing this, right? Like that they're looking for that connection and wanting to.
But they're doing it. They're modeling the behavior. You know what I mean?
Well, they're modeling the behavior, but I guess what I'm trying to say is, like you were saying, that when they're looking to talk to you and looking to make that connection, they're doing it subconsciously. They're not aware that they're doing that. It's a need for them to be able to have a conversation and learn from you, right? Because in the end, you're the one that's guiding them through life up to a certain point, and then you hope for the best and say, "There's the door." Make sure that, clean your toilet and do all that good stuff when you have your own place, and hope for the best. But while they're in your care, they're looking to you, and they're literally absorbing everything that you do.
And the way that you do it.
Yeah.
They talk just like I do. And I'm like, oh, snap. I didn't know I said it like that. That's not how I meant it.
It's amazing how children can be mirrors to us, I mean, from my experience in working with parents, like I find that they learn a lot about themselves, and they learn a lot about their own. They think about a lot of their own childhood, and sometimes it comes out in their parenting, and that doesn't mean that it's a good or a bad thing. It just is, and kind of like what you were saying, it's also an opportunity to learn, and maybe even change like generational traditions that may or may not have served us historically, and sometimes it's an opportunity to really change those patterns, because when we know better, we do better, right? And so I wouldn't necessarily say that you are shutting them down, or I can't remember the language you use, but or cutting them off from speaking. I think you're doing the best you can with what you have, right?
Yeah.
And then when they do demonstrate to you that, oh man, that's what I sounded like, then you have an opportunity to course correct, right? Because yes, sometimes we have ruptures in these relationships, but what builds intimacy is repair.
Oh, wow.
We have these disruptions, and if we don't, once we're able to come back together, now we have this shared lived experience where mommy or daddy was able to be human in front of me. They admitted that I made a mistake. They admitted that they made a mistake, and now they were brave enough to express that to me and model for me that mistakes are okay.
Yeah.
I think that being a parent does not mean that you have to have it all together. I think it's an opportunity to show your child that being human is good. It's okay.
Well,
you're teaching them those skills.
I'm totally remembering some certain things. I'm like feeling all the feelings. I've had times with Lincoln where I'm just like, hey, I'm sorry. I was really upset before, and I didn't mean to yell at you the way that I did. Let's hug it out. I'm really sorry. I'm in a really bad place. You know what I mean? Like, and it was that moment of feeling like I really did him dirty and I should not have talked to him that way. And he didn't do, it wasn't his fault. He had nothing to do with why I was upset. And because I took it out on him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But just that, what you said about repair, like that's huge.
And how wonderful that someone that has so much power in the relationship is able to say, oh, wow, I messed up. My bad. You know, that gives them permission to do the same one day. You know,
and it teaches them that very important lesson.
Yes.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you a question. So as doing what you do in your profession, what do you find the most challenging when you're working with parents?
What do I find the most challenging when it comes to working with parents? Having them understand that play isn't just play. I think that sometimes they're like, all you're doing is playing with my kid? Like, how is this therapy? You know? But, you know, helping them understand that play is really helping them practice the skills that they need for having a successful adulthood. You know, they're developing their cognitive skills, their social emotional skills, even their physical skills, like their gross motor, their fine motor. And so it may just look like something very simplistic, but it's actually really necessary for them to develop. And not only from like a physical standpoint or a cognitive standpoint, but also it develops emotional intelligence. You know, when you're able to master something, you develop confidence. When you're able to see that something you did hurt whoever you were playing with, you're able to establish empathy, right? And so, like, you also develop courage, you know, trying things that maybe you didn't think you could do before, and you accomplished it after a few tries. Like, that shows determination and perseverance. And so, helping parents understand their child from that lens, which I think also speaks to the being seen and not heard, helping them understand that when they are having fun and playing, they're not doing it just because. They're doing it because they need to, you know, to be able to develop to the adults that they will eventually become.
So you were talking about this perceived play behavior that you use with your patients or your young ones. Can you describe one particular activity that you may do that may come across as play, but really isn't? It's something that purposely is designed to help the child?
Sure. There is a modality called child-centered play therapy.
Okay.
Where you are not directing what the child should or should not be doing or the activity. And you are allowing them to be in charge. The idea that the toys are words and that the play is a sentence. They are showing you, they are expressing to you what an adult could maybe do in words. They're doing it through play. And so it may look like they're just playing because I'm not asking them to do anything. I'm observing and narrating and suggesting what they could be doing and helping them make those connections on their own. But if you were an outsider looking in, you're like, you're just watching them play. How is this therapeutic? But when you understand that there are themes in play and that the toys that they pick and the way that they decide to play with them is really the conversation.
Right.
And I can imagine that that's even more challenging in brown families, black and brown families, because we already have that preconceived notion that we don't need therapy. Therapy, right. That's for the people that are like really screwed up. And so
we
growing
just need
up,
Jesus.
Yeah, we just need Jesus, right? No, but it's a real thing in the Latino and Black communities that we grew up, like the generation, when you look at, not millennials, but when you look at baby boomers and traditionalists, they grew up with that mentality. You don't need that. That's
for white people.
That's
for rich people.
We just don't do that. Right, we can fix
that's
this.
For crazy people.
Crazy people. Mm-hmm.
I can make some home remedy and you'll be fine, right?
Some Vicks Vaporub.
Vaporub. Put Vicks on it.
That was my mom's
Vicks
favorite
everything.
Everything.
So do you see that? And we grew up with this kind of stuff. And so when
Yeah.
you're seeing parents that are still, that grew up with that sort of kind of had that kind of mentality, pushed on them, if we want to use
Just
that term.
tradition.
It's tradition. It's what we do. We don't do that. And then all of a sudden now you're trying to expose them to the possibility of using therapy, to correct behaviors or to allow a child to develop the way they should be when they're not. Do you find that challenging?
I would say sometimes it is challenging, but I think in other occasions is also an opportunity to invite the parent to reflect on their own childhood and to hold space for them to wonder about whether that's something that they enjoyed, whether it was something that they found useful, whether that's something that they want to impart to the next generation, and really allowing them to get curious about their own upbringing. Because more often than not, I find that they'll say, oh, I'm not sure if I like that. I wish that I could have played more, or I wish that my parents would have played with me. I wish I didn't have to play alone, or I wish I could have gotten to play, right? Maybe I was cleaning all the time.
Right.
And so I think that when you invite the parent to reflect on their own childhood, and then consider what they want for their own child, I think their defenses kind of come down, because I think that being a parent is a very vulnerable position, and so giving them permission to be themselves and honest with themselves allows them to do the same for their child.
That's incredible. There's a woman, a doctor, Dr. Shafali, who says along the same lines that you've just said, that people bring their kids to her to get the kids seen, and then they're upset because it turns into a session for the parent, right? And so it's like a thing that the parent doesn't like that the kid is doing it, and she's like, but what's wrong with that? And it's more based on that the parent thinks it's wrong because their parent told them it was wrong. You know what I mean? And then they get upset with her because they're like, well, we're supposed to be talking about the kid. She's like, yeah, but it's not the kid. It's you.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it takes a village. And so that if you want to see, some sort of improvement on your child's ability to handle life, you have to be able to demonstrate that as well, because the child is going to gravitate towards what they see, right? And mimic what they see. And who better than their parents? They're with you all the time. I mean, for the most part. But they also, you are the person that is supposed to keep them safe and show them the ways of the world, and then let them out and hope for the best. That's it. It's interesting.
It is. It really is. So as we wrap up, I have just a couple more questions for you. What does success look like for you with a client, or like what would you say success looks like around mental health for kids?
To me, if I can help a parent, an adult, a child, whoever in the lifespan, tap into their inner wisdom, their inner knowingness that they have the power to heal themselves, that my job is not to fix them. My job is to hold space and offer seeds or connections for them to put the pieces together and find what works for them, because they are an expert of themselves. They're the only person that's lived in their skin their whole time. And there's no way that I can know better than that.
Wow.
And so helping them really see that is success for me.
Okay. I like that. I like that a lot. And then, do you have a mantra? I've been getting into mantras. Do you have a mantra?
I feel like I've been stuck on this like holding space thing.
It's a good one.
I love it. So the mantra that I've been holding in my mind is, when I hold space for myself, I then have space to hold for others. Okay.
That's a really good one.
Can I add another one?
Yes, please. And expand on that, just so we like totally understand what you're saying.
The first one?
Yeah, both. That and whatever's coming next.
Yeah. I guess the first one is really just this idea that you can't pour from an empty cup.
Okay.
And so if you can't honor your own feelings and be in the moment with yourself, it's really hard to expect yourself to do that for other people. And you might do it, but it may not allow you to be in that space with that person in that moment. And then the other one that I hold on to is that everyone's just doing the best that they can.
That's right.
Most of the time, people really are doing the best that they can. And it may not look like it from your point of view, but they really are. And so sometimes when I'm struggling with empathizing or with a certain situation, I have to pause and think, you know, this person is really just doing the best that they can. And so if I can imagine myself in their shoes and realize that they're doing their best, then I'm able to garner a bit more, I guess, energy to support them.
I love that.
And then once you provide that support, you actually are giving them or sharing with them an opportunity for them to be able to grow, learn something new, and figure things out and say, hey, you might want to try this. You never know. You might like it. You know, it might help you in your journey to becoming a better person. You know, it's when I started going to college, one of the first classes that I took was learning across a lifespan. And it's one of those general courses that they give you that sort of kind of teaches you that while you're focusing right now on learning on what you're doing, right? Here's your class course, here's your courses. This is what you're going to be doing for the next 2 or 3 years. You also need to understand that outside of school, you will continuously always be learning. You're going to be always forced to experience different experiences, experience different people, and you have to be able to navigate that in a way that still keeps you human to a sense. Yeah. But also being able to absorb more information, because we don't stop learning the moment we stop going to school. You know, life in itself is just a learning curve. And I always look, you know, you always say something along the lines that you know, you have to be able to be open to other people and allow them to come into your space and you there so that you guys can learn from each other. And I think that that's also very important.
Right.
Yeah. It's incredible.
It is.
And then here we always talk about Mom So Hard tips. You guys don't have kids at this time. I don't know what the plan is for that, but you still have some good information. What's your best life tip?
I say honor who you are, where you are, and the relationships that you share with the important people in your life. And then allow yourself to evolve, but with self-compassion. I think if you don't like where you are or who you are in that moment or the relationships that you have, like, that's okay. Honor that too, but with self-compassion. And if you want to change it, go ahead and let yourself evolve. But don't do it like in a shaming and a guilt way. Really just honor whatever that emotion is, even if you're not happy with it, and then move forward.
That's so good, because I think we're all really good at at shaming ourselves and like making ourselves feel bad. And I think that plays into the culture that we have now with FOMO, you know, and social media and seeing what everybody else is doing. James just said to me the other day, he was like, I know you. He's not on Facebook. And he's like, I know you, but if I didn't know you, I might be jealous of the things that I see on Facebook. But I also know that you were sleeping in the middle of the day yesterday. Right? But that's because he's got like a front row view. But he's like, other people, you only see the good stuff. I said, well, that's exactly why I have this show, because I'm trying to show that I don't like this life is a roller coaster.
It is.
But
it doesn't come with instructions.
No.
And sometimes we're struggling in the moment and we're like, oh my goodness, this is terrible. Like, what am I doing? And then, I don't know, 6 years go by and you reflect back and you're like, wow, things were so much better then. Right. Like, but when you were there, you were complaining. Like, honor where you are, even if it's not where you want to be in that moment. Just that's where you are. So be there. You know?
I know. There's my favorite meme. I think it was a meme. It was something. It was like, I wish now that I was as fat as I was as skinny as I was when I thought I was fat. Right? Like, you think 5 years ago, in that time, you're like, oh my God, I need to lose 20 pounds. And then 10 years later, you're like, shit, I looked good then. I just want to be that size.
True.
It wasn't that bad. Yeah.
Guilty. Shoot, I can tell you, well, 20 years ago.
Right.
It was actually true. I was like one whole person less than I am today.
I know. It's like carve one of my kids out of my back.
I used to wear a 28 waist.
I don't think I've ever worn that size.
Oh,
Okay,
I miss
and then
those days.
my last question is, what's for dinner tonight?
Chicken noodle soup.
Home that you made?
Homemade. Yeah, I made it yesterday. So I feel like soup tastes better the next day.
The next day.
It does.
Because it just kind of simmers. And so I'm excited to have that. It's my mom's recipe.
And what kind of noodles do you use?
I use these noodles called fideos, which kind of look like almost like angel hair.
Yeah.
Oh,
pasta.
So like spaghetti, like fettuccine or.
Well, it's much
Like
thinner.
super thinner.
It's not round like spaghetti. It's almost like square, but they look like long rectangles.
Interesting. I've never seen that.
Yeah, fideos con pollo, con caldo. Oh my God. I'm just getting all these flavors in my mouth all of a sudden.
It's got chopped carrots and celery and onion. So yummy.
Chicken.
And sofrito, always. Never forget the
That's
sofrito.
right. Listen, my mom was here. She was here in May. I made her make me like 4 huge things of sofrito.
Yes.
And I'm down to 1, and she's coming November 3rd, so I'm excited.
You gotta re-up.
I love it.
That's
well,
right.
I'm friends with your mom on Facebook, so I'm going to have to ask her for some recipes.
And she will do it gladly.
Frances, it has been a joy to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. I feel like I've learned so much, and I really, really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity. Thank you.
Absolutely. So come back anytime.
That's right. The invitation is open. You got more to say? We're here to listen.
We're here to listen. And until then, we'll talk to you soon, okay? Thanks so much, Frances.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye.
You too. Enjoy your chicken soup.
Thank you.
All right. Well, that was Frances. She's amazing. I love that, it's working with kids can be a very challenging experience in whatever capacity that, you decide to do it. But I think that when it comes to mental health, we don't usually think about that in our little people.
You're like, sit down, stop yelling. I told you to stop running. Like you kind of like cut them off at the head or whatever. Yeah. And you don't, sometimes I can see it on Lincoln's face or on Emery's face when they come ready, they're ready to show me something. And I'm like, not right now. You know what I mean? And you think that is just for the moment. But in reality, if that's a recurring theme, then that really starts to affect their mental health, right?
But one of the other things that I really like and I appreciate that I'm starting to see a lot of is that we're starting to bring that conversation of mental health into the school. Right before, like 20, 30, 40 years ago, if you were thought to have some sort of mental incapacity or you were not processing things, you had to go to a specialist. You had to go somewhere.
They pull you out of school. Go to a crazy house.
You got to go somewhere to deal with what it is that you think that's wrong with whoever you're dealing with. It's good to see a positive conversation surrounding mental health and being brought into these spaces in where children are growing up, because then it sort of kind of normalizes the conversation of it being okay to once in a blue moon sit with someone and say, hey, we can have these conversations. This doesn't mean that you're defective. It just means that
or selfish
or none of that. It just means that you just need a little bit of a push to get you on the right track.
Yeah.
And the reason why I like this is because we're starting to see in young teenagers an increase in suicide. And I think that a lot of this stuff may stem from their inability to receive the help that they need at a much younger age. And I think that if we start doing that we're going to see a trend in where kids growing up today will be better capable and better equipped to handle emotional disturbances in life much better than they are capable of doing today.
We should actually bring Frances on again to talk about that, because that's a huge, I just read that is, teen suicide is humongous or on the rise, or the highest that it's been in several years or in a generation or something like that.
That's right.
And that has to be tied to mental health as a child, or dealing with, rejection, or, all of those things that she talked about tonight, dealing with empathy and courage and rejection and not knowing how to do something, or whatever those things are. We don't I don't think we're doing a great job of teaching kids that stuff now. And then combined with social media and this like right here, right now, and everybody else's life looks so much better than mine. Or I did something at school and now the whole school is on my social media page harassing me at the same time. Like that's, I think probably the teen stuff is definitely a separate issue from the early childhood stuff, but stems from whatever,
and it's even more challenging, right? You're going through all your hormonal or your changes, as they call them, into your teen years. But, we were just talking about this on our show. Last week, we had one of our friends, he was in his late 20s, committed suicide. And it was sad. He was a beautiful, absolutely loving. When you were in a space with this person, they made you feel good no matter where you were. That smile was always on, and you just never know. And so we lost someone. So we started talking about the conversation about suicide and the rate of suicide, especially in communities that are marginalized, marginalized communities, Black and brown communities, LGBTQ spaces, and people are really being affected. And we're starting to see like spikes in this type of incidences that are really concerning. And I think that that having access like this in schools from a young age
for children and parents,
we start conditioning our young ones to accept the conversation surrounding mental health as a positive thing rather than something negative.
It's so true. It's so true. So I'm really glad that she was here. I feel like I learned a ton, and I'm gonna take all of these things, right? Hold space to do like 30% is the goal. I remember when we were getting ready for Lincoln to go to school and we're like, oh my God, he can't spell his name. And then we got there and they're like, oh, we don't expect them to write until the end of kindergarten. I was like, wait a minute. And there's just like this idea that our expectations of what we think are supposed to be are way off from what the general expectation of where kids are supposed to be. And so we put all of that on our kids.
He may not be able to spell his name, but he was very inclined to learn how to write in cursive.
Right. It's true.
So you have to play to their strengths.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. So
that's amazing.
Anyway, I'm so glad that she was here, and I hope that she'll come back again soon, because there's clearly more to talk about.
Oh, listen, the field of mental health can go. It's a wide open space, and there's so many things that we can dive into that would probably help a lot of people.
Yes. So I think I'm good for the night. I gave my tip already, and now I can't remember it. That's how short my brain is. What were we talking about this morning? Do you remember? It was something I did this morning. Anyway, I already
Take a nap.
Take a nap. That wasn't it. I gave my tip earlier.
Listen
tip back to the beginning.
Be able to sort of kind of reacquaint yourself with how to leave your house.
Yes.
Right?
Maybe that
Take
was it.
Take a charger with you.
I'm not even a real person right now.
I know.
I'm gonna sleep again. I swear to God, I'm gonna go home right now and sleep again. But I'm really glad for the tip that Francis gave, which was to remember to hold space for yourself. Right? You can't pour from an empty cup. So I don't have to say anything better than that. That was pretty awesome. We are here every week. Please like and share the show. We are growing the show and bringing on really cool and incredible people with I'm constantly and consistently just overjoyed by the wealth of knowledge that the people that I know have. And we're not famous or fancy, like super. I mean, some of my friends are super fancy. Francis is kind of fancy. But we're not like super fancy, but like you don't have to be a 1 million subscriber Instagram follower person to have some really important knowledge that you have and be like a real, like an expert in a place. And I'm just really grateful to know so many, experts.
What do you always say?
All of these different areas.
It takes a village.
It does take a village, and my village is awesome.
So look within your village and find the resources that are there, because I can guarantee they'll be helpful in some way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. So shout out to my village. I'm really grateful for everybody who is in my village. And if you need anything, please shout out to me. Share and like the show. We're on all the places. Come back next week, and we'll see you then. Until then, I'll talk to you soon. Bye. This show is produced by Tom Ortiz at Digital Stream Radio. It's available for download on Podbean. Follow us at Facebook at Breezy Moms Podcast or email us at breezymomspodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, don't stress, just breathe.